Frank.
Hey Emerson, how are you, man?
I'm good. How are you doing?
All right, let's see. If there's a way I can enlarge this. There we go. Awesome. So I just got your email.
I thought it was 5 o'clock, so sorry.
No, that's awesome. That's very me, thinking I'm late for something, which I usually am these days. It's Yeah, it's interesting. I used to be an obsessive about like being early and prepared for
Yeah,
everything, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Now I've been in my 40s now. I'm halfway through, and I'm definitely not that anymore. I'm
yeah,
usually needing to catch up.
yeah. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
So tell me your story, Frank, and what got you here.
Um, well, I think I've been I I have been thinking about that idea of like spiritual journey. Is that the term you use? Spiritual journey? Is that
Not really,
or
but something like that. Yeah.
seeking? Seeking.
Seeking journey. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So it got me thinking about like the definition of spirituality, and I think it was in my early 20s. The best definition that I came across was just sort of spirituality is kind of whatever you put at the center of your life.
yeah.
Um, And that has always stuck with me because of how simple it is.
Hmm.
And I think for me, I grew up in going to a Christian church, and I liked it a lot. I actually thought I wanted to be a minister when I was a kid, um, and it was probably around 10 that it the feeling that like I'm constantly being watched and judged, and that there is this connection to this thing that even if you don't know what it is and you don't know how to make that connection, you just need to believe it's there and you'll find out when you're dead.
Just a second. My light just fell off.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, do your thing.
There we go. Technical difficulties.
Yeah. It's yeah, and so I don't know, I think uh kind of when I was really young, sort of what I put at the center of my life started with things that sort of made me feel whole, and that was usually food. And then from there, adolescence, it moved to other substances. And that sense of, I think wholeness is a good word. Um, and that sense of just being able to just sort of be. And it was probably my mid 20s. I really got into or started getting into Buddhism and meditation. Um, Mainly because I love the idea that it was like, no, there's nothing we're asking you to accept on faith. Try it and see what your experience is.
Mhm.
Like there's nothing mystical. This is just kind of what works, and um, you do it and see for yourself. And
Mhm.
and that kind of drew me back into sort of spiritual ideas, I guess.
Hmm.
But you know, it's kind of come and gone, and kind of abandoned largely spirituality for like I'm gonna go back to school, and then I'm gonna go back to school again, and then I'm gonna get married, and then I'm gonna buy a house and all the things, then having a kid. And but all throughout it, there's been this part of me that has um this um what's the word? Like this tension, you know, and ambivalence about
Hmm.
like, is this what I want? I don't
Yeah.
know. And so um a couple of years ago, you know, there was um kind of going through the process of getting sober, and but in a different way. I've had long stretches of being clean before, but this felt different.
Hmm.
Um, and having some family members go through some long illnesses and pass away, and then we moved across the country and got divorced, and it's been this whole sort of the falling away of kind of the exteriors,
Hmm.
and it leaving me with like kind of nowhere to go. You know, it's like I can't go back to substances, and I know that other people and outside circumstances, like how the job I have or how much money I make or the house I live in, none of that shit. I've done it, and
Hmm.
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, it matters to the extent of like I have a, you know, I'd like to have a place to live and be able to pay my bills, but like it's not what I'm living for.
Hmm.
And so it sort of turns me back to the past couple of years thinking about spirituality. Um, and I should say that it all throughout it where my spirituality, I think, aside from these outside things, was in the mind,
Hmm.
right? I mean,
Yes.
that's what I do for a living. I'm a psychologist, and it's like I just need to figure out what's wrong with me, and that it's like there's something unconscious, there's trauma there, there's that it just needing to have that sort of clarity, or you know, that I will figure this out. And um it's always been my mind. My mind has
Hmm.
been really my only friends, you know,
Yeah.
like it's always there with me, telling me. And there was no that sense of separation was non-existent until the past couple of years, where it was like I'm not my thoughts,
Hmm.
and I'm not my body, so what am I?
Hmm.
Started to kind of occur to me that
Yeah,
it was like I have no idea.
yeah.
And so I saw one of your actually I listened to one of your podcasts on Spotify and maybe a month and a half ago. And I've listened to a couple others, but there's been this part of me that's like it's cool to listen to other people's experience, but I know my mind is going to start setting
Yeah,
expectations. And maybe it's just better to just show up and see what happens,
yeah.
you know? So, but one thing I will say is I I've been impressed by some of the folks I've heard you speak with, their level of dedication to this process. Um, and there's something to there's something really commendable about that. Sort of, even if you feel like you it dries up, that the process itself hopefully will yielded something. I don't know. Um, but I had no idea that there were all these things out there. And
Did you have any
I mean, I
background
knew
with
vaguely
non-duality?
about
Did you have
what's
any
that?
background with non-duality at all, or did you listen to other speakers or teachers about this?
Uh, a little bit of the of um Nabil. He's the guy who does the Untangle the Minds podcasts. And he's still doing it, but sort of a section by section of like the Ashtavaka Gita, which is cool. I
Hmm.
dig that.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I think anytime I kind of come across non-duality, it was just kind of like this shit's I whatever. Like there has to be a rational sort of path. This there's no self set. It was just kind of like I, my mind was just kind of like no, like
Yeah.
we need this. This sounds like nonsense.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
and there's nothing to I don't know what it even means.
yeah,
So, and at that point I was not willing to sort of sit and actually take some time to reflect on it.
yeah,
But I think over this last year I have done some of that and it's things sort of settle and it's a little like I guess that's it's not really weird or a- as abstract as it initially sounds.
hmm.
But outside of that, no, I've not had not had a lot of experience with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So what are you seeking then? What are you looking for?
Where there's a lot of different directions I feel like my mind kind of
Yeah,
goes
yeah,
in.
yeah.
And And I feel like over time that the answer to that would change,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I think at some point there was like, I want to have like the skies opening, light shining down,
Yeah.
and I live in a state of basically being on MDMA all day,
Yeah.
every day,
Yeah.
was kind of my
Yeah.
expectation of
Yeah.
and then I think it's kind of moved to like I'll just know everything about like the world and at this point um just that kind of space of quiet to
Yeah.
exist is I don't it's just like I don't need to know anything. I don't really want to know anything.
Hmm.
I just want to be it would be nice to be able to sort of exist with less of this bracing.
Hmm.
Um, and for the thinking to not be so so all encompassing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I was talking about this with somebody yesterday, so this might be why this has come to mind, but like you ever seen A Clockwork Orange?
Oh, I love that movie.
Where at the end they got him in that thing where he can't close his eyes.
Hmm.
It at times it feels like that with my thinking, that it is just like even if the thought comes that it's like this is just thinking, it's like that has that has no currency.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
has no
Yeah.
traction
Yeah.
against like when I'm locked and loaded.
Yeah.
Um, and it's same with like the bracing in that the more I try to be like, okay, like I'm not gonna fight this. I'm just trying to understand, sit with this. It still feels like you ever have those little finger cuffs?
Oh, yeah. The Chinese. Yeah.
Yeah, where you start to pull and then
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
sort of feels like that a lot internally for me.
Mm.
And there just is it just feels like I'm there's no space.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, the good thing is that
So
you don't really have a lot of non-duality exposure, which is a great thing because it's like a it's it's like a it's like a drug for the mind as well when you get totally into it. But the other thing is that it looks like that there is an identification with the mind big time, right? Which is why you probably booked this, and I can relate to that. I remember kind of like that Clockwork Orange. I would just wake up in the morning like, oh, again. It's just nonstop parade of thoughts, beliefs, and concepts and ideas, and how to get to the next. So if you look at it, it's like the apparent mind is like an addict that is always looking for the next. So it goes to that urge of trying to, whether it be kind of like light, that sky opening for you, which is in the next, or that peace that passes, you know what I'm saying? All that kind of stuff. Um, and it's just really a belief system. So at this second, what do you believe if you're not able to reference the past or project to the future? Just this second. Just this millisecond. What is it that you believe? Right at this present moment.
There is, it's more sensation than thought.
Okay. So if you go
Um,
direct to that sensation, if
mhm.
you take away the word sensation, what's left?
If I take away the word sensation, then
Mm.
just physical experience or,
Okay. What if you take away the language at this moment? What are you
yeah,
without the language? You don't have to respond. You don't have to use the mind. This is kind of like almost like a process of elimination, like a subtracting. We're looking for that subtle space, a direct space, like a directness that does not, it's not influenced by the mind, the past or the future. It's very, very simple. The way that I explain this is just, I can explain this to like an 8-year-old.
it's helpful.
Yeah. I used to intellectualize this big time and have this like massive um 5D events that I would be talking about what I can't talk about. So I just was just really honest with myself one day and just started doing the one once, and it seemed to be more effective than having this language that just seems to escape it. So what are you without this language? What are you without language?
It's kind of a passing perceptions, just kind of like I see that until my eyes move, and then I'm over there seeing that, and
Yeah.
then there's a noise, and it comes and then it goes, and
What if you take away the observer?
it was just sort of
It's very subtle. There's a direct quietness. It has nothing to do with the mind, with thinking.
no.
No.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. It's very simple.
It's it's um soft.
Yeah. That's what it is. Soft, right? And it's like a sobriety. So the mind is inadequate thoughts, right? So it just keeps on coming up, churning out thoughts. But when the urge to go to the thought is seen through, meaning that if there's no next, because that's just a thought, if there's no past, it's just a thought, then there's a softness right here. And it's kind of like a, don't look at it as a big boom or whatever, but it's a gentle unfolding. It's the more kind of like that you relax into the space, basically, right? So if you take away the narrative, the narrator, what's left? Take away the experiencer, the observer, the narrator, the thinker. What's between thinking and not thinking?
It's an interesting question that nothing, but I get caught in that, like, what's the difference between no thinking and silence?
Yeah.
That it's like, is my mind just sort of sitting there waiting?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it
Or is
has
it
nothing.
actually silent?
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you he says being direct with the question, right? And the mind wants to interject and say, you know what you just said, right? And then when it goes there, what do you without that thought? And it's very simple, right? And the simplicity of this is when this unhappening happened for me, it was like I could not find myself other than thought.
Mhm.
So if Emerson is just a thought, then everything that Emerson has ever said, thought, believed, understood, everything that I've heard is from that perspective. So if you take away that root, then everything kind of like starts falling apart. And then I started seeing them like, oh my goodness, all words are made up. Because Emerson's made up. So every uttered word, show me a word that's not made up. So everything that you think about is made up. And this is a bit out there, but then everything that you know is made up. Everything that you think other people know is also made up. So you can stay in that make believe, or you can wake up from that saying that, oh shoot. So if every single thought is made up, the past and the present, the future is made up. But there's something here that cannot be made up, but I can't tap into it because the only faculty that I have is made up. So even the one that sees that it's made up is also made up. And the reason I go to the in between, because you can't really go to that question. You can't really answer that question. So, for example, what's in between belief and non belief? And I'll simplify it, right? If there's an orange that has a label of belief, another orange that says a label of non belief, what's in between the two oranges?
Space.
Yeah, that's it. And the space that you're looking for in the next is always what's here. So it doesn't matter what thoughts come, what beliefs, ideas happen, right? There's just almost like a spaciousness that begins to grow. The more that you're not caught up in the engagement of the past or the future thoughts, the more that, when the thought starts coming, when you start seeing it as made up, and even the one that's seeing is made up, then it just all becomes space. And it's anticlimactic for the mind because the mind is expecting grand and next. But it has nothing to do with the mind. You have to get the mind out of the way. If there is no mind, no thoughts, there's no whatever, right? It's just all a fabrication. So if you pull the curtain of words and language, what's behind it?
Nothing.
Yeah, yeah. And it's sobering, really. You've had addictions. This sobriety is not the best thing in the beginning, right? But as it grows, as you probably know, there is a clarity that happens. And all of that intoxicating thoughts about the next attainment, the next enlightenment, the next concept that I want to listen to, the next podcast. becomes irrelevant. It doesn't mean that the next podcast will come, maybe it will show up, but you see that it's all made up now. It's almost like that 3D, trick, when you see all plates in one side, and the longer that you look, it becomes the opposite side of it. I don't know if you've seen that one. It flips it. Or
Yeah.
that when you see those, remember those 3D butterflies that
Yeah.
if you look long enough, then it has that 3D effect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was like a jaguar one.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
It was like I think it was like a forest maybe, and
yeah,
then you had to sort of cross your eyes, and then all of a sudden it was like there.
yeah. It's just a slight switch in the perception of things. Because that's what got me in trouble before, was that I chased the words. And then I became a supplier of words, and then I got high on my own supply. And then I was now abiding in awareness, or dropping away the me, or whatever you've heard about what this is, or trying to find a seat of consciousness or awareness. And I'm glad that you did not go there. So, but any word, if it's all made up, then everybody's just selling you a carrot. So the end of seeking, or the end of search, is that when you see that, you're looking at space. And what's looking at space is also space. It's just all space.
I did have a question because I've heard you discuss your past, your history,
Yeah.
and was curious about the role that like you've come to this understanding and kind of come to who you are from sort of where you've been,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how much of a part does that play in kind of in kind of who you are now, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not being very articulate on it,
No
but does that
worries.
make
No
sense?
worries.
Kind of where I'm
It
going.
it kind of does. Yeah. It's almost like, what, again, this is just more narrative, right? It's almost like I was in a nightmare, because I was so caught up in my mind. And but to be honest with you, every single story is going to be unique, right? So it's not, some people say that there's a prerequisite, you have to suffer to get this to be able to, but I've also seen people that are 20 years old, you know what I'm saying, have not had an ounce of suffering, and and get this in a snap. And then I talk to them 3 4 years later, and how they are clear about what's happening, what they see the appearance of what this is, without
Mhm.
the dogmatic, or without the prerequisite that I went through. It's almost like and I see people that are homeless, for example. I talk to, in my old teaching days, I used to talk to people on the street, because that was my path of selfless service. And um and then I one of the catalysts is that I was talking to this person that lost everything, that walked away from a stock um, broker job, that lost everything basically. He did have suffering. Does not know anything about non-duality, but he's clear as a bell.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also seen monks. I've actually gone to monasteries, and um, did one-on-ones with the monk there, and the monk is as deep into thoughts as a person that I do one-on-ones with, and he spent 20 years in the monastery.
Sounds like torture.
Yeah.
I
Imagine
mean,
if you bought into that belief, and then you go to a monastery to, it's not all that bad, according to him, but he's still seeking, and he was just getting depressed, and he was just getting, um more into thoughts and everything because he's adapted to that monastic living in a way that it's almost like so the mind is like a prison if you look at it. The walls of the prisons are belief systems, ideas about the past, projections to the future. And but when you start seeing that the prison walls are made up, then you start maybe walking slowly out of the prison. You might turn around because that's all that you're used to. Just like any any long time prison, in prison characters, right? They get out of jail and then they do some petty crimes so that they can go back to what they're used to. So what you're
That's fair.
used to is the idea of you're caught up in the idea of the next, kind of like what you were saying earlier, your story, which is quintessential story of you know get a job, get a get married, have kids, that kind of thing. So there's always a next, a next, a next, and even our education system, there's elementary, then there's high school, then there's college, and then there's PhD if you want to go all the way there. Um, so it's almost like we've been bamboozled to think that the next, and we're avoiding this soft, subtle reality that we can't even call reality of just living. Instead of living organically, I guess, then we get caught up in the narrative of what living should be. That I need this, I need that, I need this, and that. And then the mind creates this historic idea of what you are so that it can maintain it in the future. So what if we take away the language? Because that's all that we have basis. For me, it was almost like a full circle going back into when I was a baby. My thoughts were so heavy. It was almost like like one of those kind of like, what do you call it? A I can't remember the word, but it was so intense. I had panic attacks. I had this severe depression, and I thought I lost everything. So my prison walls were kind of like I was like in what do you call that? Solitary confinement in my mind, which was hell for a few years, right? And then to see that all of that was made up. It's like a big plot twist in a movie. But it's also anticlimactic. You're like, oh shoot, all I've worked for this for nothing. I meditated 10,000 hours to get into kind of like to become a meditation teacher. And then I thought for 10 years. And then I did this, I did that. I gave up careers, you know what I'm saying? I gave up wealth, I gave up houses, all that kind of stuff. I gave up romance, all that kind of stuff, just to end back zero, nothing. Which, if you look at it, which is a precursor to what happens when you close your eyes at the last breath.
Yeah.
Nothing. Yeah.
You don't take anything with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking about you know who Houdini is.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
great escape
So,
artist. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So back, I guess, when he was earlier in his career, one of the things that he would do to like drum up advertising is when
Yeah.
he came into town, he would go by the local jail
Oh.
and would have the sheriff lock him up and he would break out of the cell.
Mm-hmm.
He did this, I don't know how many times, but the story goes that there was only one time that he didn't. And uh, he was in there for however long and eventually was like, I don't know. I talking to the sheriff was like, I give up. Is
Yeah.
this some kind of new lock? And the sheriff looked at him and was like, well, I figured you were just gonna break out of it anyway, so I didn't bother to lock it. And he just pushed the door open, and it's like that.
That's a good one. I'll use that, Frank.
Yeah, I heard that story and I was
I'm
like,
looking
fuck
for
me,
stories
man.
like that. That's great. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's that's you you have this idea of what the situation is and you know how to solve it
yeah,
or you know what to do because you know what the situation is.
yeah. And
But you
that's a perfect example of how the mind works, right? So it goes into this linear, like how do I get this? How do I do this? How, it comes in this horizontal. But if you flip that, if you go vertical, where's the prison? So from past, present, and future, and if you flip that, it's right here. But we're so used to going back and forth.
yeah.
Yeah. And if you look at it, and this is just more story, it's like the mind is like an imaginary friend that we believe is us. We get identified with it. So it's not about dissociating, you know what I'm saying? Because that's not what I'm talking about. Like, it's not about um, dissociating with language either, because I love language, but seeing through it, seeing through
What
the facade, seeing through. It's like dismantling that fantastical idea of what you think you are.
I guess seeing through is like a is
It's like if you look at magic, right? It's kind of like seeing through the magic, seeing through the illusion. So there's magic, there's a whole bunch of tricks. And if you see that everything that you're seeing is just all made up, or it's a trick. When you're caught up with the trick so much, then you believe in the magic, right? You're kind of like, oh my goodness, he knows he can teleport or he can disappear. But if you see behind the scenes that there is a trap, there's a cutout somewhere in the bottom, so where you can escape from. It dismantles that fantasy. So if you see that there's no past or future, they're just thoughts, then that whole idea of levitating or the angels coming down and with their trumpets, you know, Buddha and Christ high fives you. You got it, Frank. You know what I'm saying? That's the fantastical version of this. But the sobriety of this one is seeing this world fresh again. So for example, everything that we see, we've already labeled it with language. We're almost kind of like um, screwed it up. You know what I'm saying? What this is. If you look at, I talk a lot about this in my talks about tribes. There's tribe that does not have the language, like a really remote tribe in the Amazon that does not know what the next is. So there was a Christian missionary that went there and trying to, sell them the salvation, but they can't seem to understand what's there to be saved. Right. And the
yeah,
missionary started looking at the way that they live, that and the way that they're present, the way that the minimal language that they have. For example, if you go to a person, since they don't have past or future, he'll just say fishing. They gotta go guys fishing, and then they go fishing. There's not much small talk or whatever, and then but they seem to live a life that is just clear and content. Here we are with our technology and AI and all that kind of stuff. Nothing wrong with it. And now we're having existential crisis over and over and over again of what's happening. So if you take away the narrative of the mind, just really plain and simple, right? If you take away the observer, the experiencer, the narrator, the storyteller, what do you have left? So when there's nowhere to go, there's no more options. This is all that you have, right? Then there's this peace with it, a silence with it. You're like, okay, I guess all the fantastical idea about trying to get to somewhere in my mind is completely irrelevant. It's pointless. And then you see colors more vibrant, kind of like when you're running. I don't know if you run or when you do some sports.
Go
There's a
for go for a hike.
go for a hike, right? After like maybe an hour of hike and everything, when the mind has settled down a little bit, then everything becomes a little bit brighter. Everything becomes a little bit more crisper because the cyclical pattern of thinking that seems to create the blindfold of what this is sometimes slips, and you see the directness of what this is. You smell the roses, you see the sunshine, the glow of things. Very ordinary. So all my life, all the time that I was seeking, staying in my in my meditation room, spending 4 hours, sometimes more, trying to get into that peace when I just really started seeing that there's no next and there's no past, so there's always peace. So no matter what the situation is, when there is no thought about, what, looking for something better, then there's a contentment that starts growing of whatever this is. When I realize that my thoughts are not controlling any of this, my beliefs are not impacting any of this. It's like the control freak, the character that tries to control everything, starts backing down a little bit. The example that I use with it is kind of like I've been trying to drive this car and trying to, race or slow down or do whatever. When I realize that the car is driving on its own, so I start taking my hands off the steering wheel. I'm like, oh, okay.
It's not doing the doing and figuring out of
Yeah.
like, and yeah, that how tiring. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that that's sort of like it's beyond just tired. It's
One thing that I
it's
noticed with a lot of people at the end of seeking is they're exhausted,
depleted is
depleted.
just
Yeah, 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 yeah.
like I don't there's really uh this performative self that I
Yeah,
have to be
yeah.
throughout the week.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And
Oh,
then and then I get to the weekend and then I have my son and there's then I need to be dad, right?
yeah,
and then I turn right back around and it's like, all right, back into work. And it's like getting to the point where it's like physically, emotionally,
It's
but to
taxing.
the well, and it gets to the point that like I'm nonverbal. Like I'm just like I have nothing. Like I just
Yeah.
need to be
Yeah.
left in a dark room
Mm.
because I can't keep going. You
Yeah.
know, it just
Yeah. Stop. Yeah. Right. It's like, and that's what was with me, right? I'm like, oh my goodness, I've created all of this drama, all of these personas. I can relate. Like I was a spiritual teacher, then I have to be my son, the son to my parents and the brothers. It was just nonstop play, it was role play. It was just so exhausting. And I just had so many masks and I didn't know which one to wear. And it was just, yeah. So
yeah,
when when the identity starts peeling, the idea of what you are in the past and what you should be in the future, even that weight, right? That weight, when it starts crumbling, when it starts dissipating, when it starts softening, then there's an easiness. I get a lot of psychologists and therapists that books me. You know what I'm saying? Like lots, lots.
yeah, I can't imagine being in a I because I already am just kind of like I can't just sort of look at somebody and know what's going on with them.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even gonna try to pretend that I'm can do
Yeah.
that or that diagnoses are this particular form of therapy works for this. It's just like I have no
Yeah.
idea, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm not going to try to pretend like I do because
Yeah.
it feels like it's just disingenuous. And, but in your situation of like ex providing people with a path of how to understand existence, that feels like a lot of fucking pressure. Like to be like, let me tell you how life really is and how you should be thinking about your existence.
Actually,
Like,
no, it's actually quite easy because all I'm doing is just subtracting.
no, 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 not now. I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
in the
Oh, in the
past
past, oh my goodness,
when you
holy
were,
crow.
you
It
know,
was
like, yeah, no, 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 no. I'm not
oh no.
speaking about you
Yeah, yeah.
currently,
Yeah.
what you
Yeah,
do
yeah. Before it
know.
was I was imparting knowledge. Yeah, you're right. It was just the heaviest thing and um I was so miserable because I had to even put on the persona that I am happy and there were so much limitations. Like for example, why can't I just enjoy a beer or something? And it was I was supposed to be perfect now and I could not even I would smell bacon and I'm like, oh, I wish I could have bacon, and I was vegan, right? Those little things, right? Those little things that I it just became a performance of an
Yeah.
enlightened person. um so now anything goes. Basically, there's just surprisingly now that there's just this freedom out, freedom from all ideas of my learned freedoms, um, all freedom. My life actually has become very simple. There was a point that I was being nihilistic, that I was just like, well, you know what? I failed as a spiritual teacher, so I went into the opposite end of partying and substances and all that kind of stuff. now there seems to be a balance, right? There seems to be a clarity that kind of like, okay, right? It's everything is I don't want to say boring, but very neutral. There's a neutrality to everything. I went from the opposite spectrum, right? So here I was like a saintly character, that was just like helping people on the streets, promoting, right way of living kind of thing. And then here I was complete like degenerate, you know what I'm saying? DJing, you know what I'm saying? And just sleeping on couches and just a mess of a character, right? But the other one was also a mess, to be honest with you. It just looked like that I got it together, but that was also a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I, I, uh, I, it's so confining, and it always is. Well, I don't know if always, but most of the time, I feel like when it makes big news that like, oh, the minister of this mega church who used to have weekly calls with the
That's right.
president is like smoking meth and doing this and that,
Hiring escorts.
and it's like, and it's so shocking, and just everybody's so disappointed in them, and it's like I the level of pressure to basically be sort of like you are the mouthpiece of Jesus,
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
guide us, oh great
yeah.
one. Like,
And you know
how do
what? I have
you
I have compassion for that because if I was in that position, I would be doing that too. You know what
yeah,
I'm
no
saying?
thanks.
That's what I'm saying. No
That's what
thanks. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, that it's like I am so
Midway through it, I'm like, what the fuck did I get into? There was just kind of like there was a sobering thing. I'm like, oh shit, how did I get here? How did I get here again? Kind of thing. But sorry, go ahead. You were saying something.
well, no, but that brings up a question of like, how did do you ever run into any of those people?
I
Like
actually
from
just did. Yeah, I just did actually. I was in Vancouver. I
hmm,
ran to a few of them actually. They wanted to. I've been talking to some of them, over the years, right? And they have listened to some of my videos now, so they're quite all right now. But in the past, there was a lot of confusion of what happened. So I'm just really candid with them, really transparent with them, and they're hurt. A lot of people were, right? Because you know what, I was no saint, but I also did a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? That like imagine being your spiritual teacher, and me coming in hungover. You know what I'm saying? Reeking of booze, and the next day teaching meditation, and they were just yeah. There were some great discussions basically, but for the people that stuck around anyway, there's a lot of people that probably have moved on, and but there were people that basically were just saw through it, kind of like understand what was happening too. And then they've been listening to my video is very I'm very transparent with everything. My video is out there, right? So it's up for scrutiny. And then they by listening to the videos, they're like, we understand what's happening. And of course, some of them also had clarity watching the videos. They were curious, and then they started listening to the questions. What are you without language? What are you without belief? And they started clearing up. So the videos helped them. They were telling me that watching the one-on-one videos helped them understand what was happening to me. Yeah. And they said they also repeated the same thing that you did. That must have been a lot of pressure on you. Especially I was catering to the most an audience or students that were actually really suffering in the depths of their suffering, addictions, and of course I opened up my center in the middle of the poorest postal code in Canada, so all of the homeless people, all of the people with addictions can come. It was
was this in
brutal.
Vancouver?
It was in Vancouver, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you in whereabouts are you, Frank?
I live in North Carolina at the moment,
Yeah,
Western
Western.
North Carolina.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah,
which,
it was beautiful mess. You know what I'm saying? It was a beautiful mess. It was the intentions in the beginning. It was earnest. There was an awakening that happened. I didn't even announce that I had an awakening. I just really wanted to help out people. I just wanted to maybe if I can teach them some meditation, or maybe if I could teach them a little bit about awakening and everything without making it dogmatic and everything. I could reach out to them, and it did to some people. But I also noticed that no one was getting out. That the community, when there's a hierarchy, because I guess I was the self-appointed leader, that they all look up to you. Right. At one point, you become a cult of personality,
right.
and then all of a sudden, you're like, "Am I my own cult leader?" At one point,
Well, I think that that's an important that's like a an important check to that checking in on like how am I doing? How am I thinking? What am I believing?
yeah, yeah.
You-
As generous as kind I was at that time, there were some moments that I was not that. Power corrupts, right? So when you have this power and everything, and everybody's just glazing their eyes over you. My sister actually did a photo shoot for one of my teacher trainings, and she said to me, "These are your minions. Their eyes are glazed. You know, they talk. They can't stop talking how good you are." So when she left, you know, when she packed up all of her camera equipment, she basically said, "Bye, loser," and left. And all of my students were like, "Oh, why did she?" It was a great, you know, it's good to have, you know, it's good to have people that call you out, basically.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, you know what? But after that, you know what? It's been it was funny, right? So when I fell from grace, all I tried to do was try to have a redemption arc, basically, right? So it's kind of like, but when it
Come
finally
back.
of the comeback, but when it finally happened, I didn't even say a peep to anyone. I was just content. I was just kind of like, okay. It's almost like I saw the innocence and everything, not as a cop out. You know what I'm saying? I did roll around in shame and guilt and suffering for a couple of years. You know what I'm saying? But when everything cleared up, when I saw that everything is just this, for lack of a better word, right? That there's just this subtle directness, there's subtle clarity without language here, and that's what's always here. All of the distortions started clearing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the masks started falling, right? All of the personas, all of the identity, all of that kind of stuff, the belief system started falling apart. Um, some of it really instantaneously, some gradually. It's almost like that there is um, there is this undoing of things. It's kind of like slowly waking up from a nightmare. You're still trying to figure out, did that really happen? It did feel real. So the persona is the nightmare, basically, that just run amok. You know what I'm saying? Running around with the chainsaw. It seems like.
Did you ever hear like any of like Alan Watts's lectures on like the cosmic drama or the cosmic joke?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I loved Alden
That-
Watts. Yeah.
Yeah, and that idea that it's like the actor on the stage who's able to fully give themselves, feel the feelings,
Yeah.
be that person while recognizing that they are still they're playing a role and then
Hmm.
they leave, walk off the stage, and they leave the role on the stage.
Yeah.
But for people, they believe they are their role, and then they leave the stage and they continue to engage as if they were that.
Oh, yeah.
And the realization that like is sort of what he called that joke, right? That like you've just been believing a character, right? That
Yeah.
it's not you.
Yeah, it's like going to a Halloween costume party and then leaving with your costume on thinking that you're Batman or Superman or something or
Yeah.
whatever character that you think that it, and that's what it is. It's almost like when we were kids, right? We took on this persona and then we believe that that's us and then other people believe that's you. It's almost like a there's enabling everywhere too that that's who you are um, in a society that promotes that. So you have this almost like solidified version of you in your head. But if you really investigate it, if you really go directly at it, you can't find it. And then even just a simple pointing, if you take away the past and the future, can you find you? And I had this person saying, "Well, I'm here." I said, "Well, the I am is just a fabrication of the past." Because, but I am here. that's how that's how heavy it is, right? So, what's the I am without the past or the future? Is there an I am? Are we really here if we take away the past or the future? If we just really click into this sliver of presence right now, and if you take away the, because everything that we say is historical, it's a dead language basically. So if you lift the language, because that's what's happening right now, we're just in a trance of language and words and squiggles and lines basically. What's here really?
I don't know.
Yes.
That that's interesting because that is like the I, you know, that is like you're not your thoughts, you're not your body, but you are the I that I the awareness is the I, right? And it's I
I don't doubt those teachers' clarity, but I question their words because all words are made up. So simple. If all words are, they're made up, so even the conviction that there's an I, that's the awareness, is just another made up thing. So it's difficult for me because I had to backtrack in everything that I said before, especially with my old students. Right? They had so many questions. What about the self? What about this? What about this, and that? Like if there's a simple thing, I'm gonna go back into that tribe, right? If you ask the tribe about the I, what would they say? For something to be true, it has to be universal all around. Otherwise, it's just subjective, right? But there's something that we cannot say, and it's all universal. That silence, you know what I'm saying? That moment where we can't say something, that's all universal. And that's, if you take away the language, that's all that's left is that undeniable silence.
That's yeah, that here something just sort of went like,
Yeah,
you know, um, because even as you were saying, it's even I or the awareness, it's still going to pull the mind towards coalescing around something.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's like, it's this. And then it's like, but you can't know what this is. It almost gives the mind a hiding spot because it's like, well, you
It
can't see
does.
it,
Yeah,
but
you
it's
got
just
it.
a
Yeah,
thought back there being
yeah,
like, we're the eye. And it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
well, I guess
yeah.
I can't see it. But there's an uneasy feeling of like, am I just, I feel unsettled. So I don't know what to do with that though.
But
But
if you look
then,
at it, that's just another trick to go to the next. What's between settled and unsettled?
yeah, I mean, I and there is I can feel like there is a wanting to name what this is,
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
it's just
Don't fall
being
into
and
that
it's,
trap. Yeah, don't,
yeah.
don't. Yeah, yeah. And it's so easy. And I'm not better than them, but I've seen so many teachers and speakers fall into that trap of having this um assumption that they propose as absolute. It's all assumptions. It's all made up, right? But the way that they're relaying it, there's so much conviction to it that from the listener's vantage point, they're like, he must be saying he knows something that I don't know. But what he knows is also made up, and what you don't know is also made up. If everybody's brutally honest, people would admit that we have no idea what we're thinking about. We just think that we know, but we really have no ideas. Because the we, the I, is just made up. So anything that it comes up with is another fabrication.
I my son is 4 and
That's a great age. It's cute. Terrible. He's past the terrible
that
trees and the formidable four.
yeah, right. And it one of the things that's been so fun is like he'll be like, yeah, I remember when he'll be like, I remember doing that when I was a baby. I was like, yeah, how long ago was that? He was like, well, it was when I was 40. I'm like, oh, really? And he's like 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, it just he's just using concepts, but they have
Yeah, yeah,
no
yeah, yeah.
meaning to
That's
him.
right.
He's
Yeah, yeah,
yesterday, last year,
yeah.
5 minutes ago. It's all like it was then. and he'll be super angry and be like, I hate you and I never want to see you again. And then a minute later, he's like, what's for dinner? And
That's
it's
right.
like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm like, no, no, no,
And
no,
you know
no. I'm
what's
holding
wild
this.
is
I'm
that he
still angry and
he will
giving
not
you this.
remember any of this because it doesn't stick yet, right? So all of this conceptual all of this emotions, all of this thing is like sand castles that comes and goes, right? But the problem as we get older is that we make the sand castle into a castle. We start putting cement in it. It solidifies that identity. And you see the innocence in him, right? You see the innocence in his ways and um, in his conviction, right? Because he's just really mimicking how you use language. He's just learning all of this stuff. So we learn language, we learn all of this magic basically as a tool, you know what I'm saying? So that we can be in a spell or spellbound by language. And if you probably saw him kind of like develop that, me, this is mine, you know what I'm saying? You know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. What it's mine and what's yours is mine, and
that's right.
unless
Yeah,
I don't want it, then you can have it.
yeah.
And
Mimics. They're trying to grasp a language that's foreign, basically. If you look at it, right?
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and develop and a worldview and a philosophy of
yeah.
sort of, that that it's the I and
And then others.
right.
To solidify that I, there has to be others. It has to have an opposite.
Yeah.
There has to be a not me. Because if you lift all the language, is there any separation really?
Yeah, it gets me thinking about like we talk or I've talked with people about like you know we have the younger generations are all growing up with their online
Oh,
personas
that's right. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
and it being like it's not really who they are, but like now sitting here I'm like, well, have we been doing anything different? Wandering around being like, I'm Frank and these are my thoughts and I exist
Yeah. It's the same
and
thing.
it's just made up.
Yeah. It's just another layer of made up, right? It's kind of like what I said, right? There's this kind of like what you say, right? When you show up with your son, you're a different person. You know, this thing is just a whole bunch of layers of made made up stuff.
Hmm.
It's funny, people find me from TikTok and want to debate me, but I'm like, I have really nothing to debate about. It's just a bunch of words, right? It's
Well, and I don't have a point of view that needs to be defended.
exactly, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't really
There's this person that have all of this idea for me to speak with this other speaker, and you can like have um a debate basically, and I get been invited, but I just don't have any more interest in that. So I've even really stepped down as a speaker, and I just do this one-on-ones, right? And I don't need the title of whatever, right? Teacher, speaker, it's just all made up stuff, right? So seeker, it's just, yeah, it's but I'm glad to, because it's like I escaped from hell, and then people that are marching towards it, at least I can shake them up a little bit and just say turn around. Like that crazy old man with that sign, you know what I'm saying?
well,
With his
it's through
tattered clothes and old, you know what I'm saying? Been through hell basically, right? So
well, it's just through we don't do it through you don't do it through convincing or coercion. It's just people see, it's like the old saying, like, I would rather see a sermon than hear one,
yeah, yeah,
that it's like, I don't need to be the non-duality spokesperson.
yeah,
I, I'm just, I do what feels like the right thing or what feels good
yeah.
for me and for others
That's
and
what it is.
until
Yeah.
I don't.
I don't need to be the beacon of hope for non-duality. You know what I'm saying? And the shining example of a wordsmith with all of his linguistics, you know what I'm saying? Stylings in trying to explain this. I like Alan Watts because he didn't take himself seriously too.
Yeah, it's a weird uh kind of course trajectory that his sort of life and career went. I mean, what a crazy time to be living and being like a Eastern religious studies philosophy,
Did
like
you
in
know
this.
that he was a minister before?
I did not know that.
Yeah. He started with the ministry basically, and left. I love his story, right? Because he was basically being touted as like the brilliant voice in Christianity. And yeah,
I did not know that.
read his biography. It's quite fascinating. And I kind of like resonate with that one because he just not just become an Eastern philosophy, character. He came from that Christian, and he was talking about Christian. Um, he was just, yeah, he broke a lot of belief systems basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But he was very intellectual. He was very and the way that he talked, I loved it. Like his voice. Wow, what a great um speaker.
Oh my
Brilliant,
God, it's
right?
mesmerizing and
He commands the room when he speaks, right? He just has this timbre in his voice and this cadence and this diction, and wow, right? So um
and it's also backed up by knowledge.
yeah.
It's you uh
Although there's things that I don't really agree with him, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, when I was listening to that one, it was a fresh breath of fresh air, because I was kind of like listening to a lot more soft spoken, almost meditative way of speaking. And yeah, he just went. I love that he was just alive. And then
yeah.
people don't give him credit because of his alcoholism, I guess, and he died. You know what? So what? It's cool. There's also, I like also the Trungpa, you know what I'm saying? The the drunk monk.
Oh, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche.
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
remember reading, it was a long time ago, and I don't think I fully understood nearly any of it, but it was cutting through spiritual materialism.
Yeah.
It was one of his books. But yeah, that it was interesting learning that like a seemed to have a substance abuse problem, seemed to be really into his female followers a little more than maybe he should have been. But it also is like it's not to I don't know. It's the problem of putting people on a pedestal as like they have the answers and are somehow do no wrong because they really aren't human.
Yeah.
There's something beyond that.
Yeah. And
They've realized the self.
that was my mistake in the beginning, is that when people were putting me on the pedestal, I was guilty of staying there. Even though if it was trying to say don't put me on a pedestal, but the adorations and I didn't sleep with any students, you know what I'm saying, but I did enjoy the hypocrisy of talking about purification, while here I was, you know, partying all night, that kind of thing, and just, you know, doing a lot of things that I was trying to lecture the next day, right? So but it did cause a lot of suffering, you know, because I had to step down and my life was completely stripped. Everything was stripped. It was like everything that I worked for. I think one of my ex-students said, "What about your legacy?" Because I built this really great legacy as a selfless service kind of like character that helped others, right? And my message was help. Selfless service to others brings liberation, basically, which is the yeah. And then when I
That's just, oof,
midway
that
through
sounds
that, I was like,
exhausting.
"What's that?" It was
That,
exhausting.
that sounds
It was
exhausting.
exhausting. At the end of it, I was just like, I would hide in like every lecture that I did. I just needed, I needed a beer afterwards. It was just, it was so heavy. It was just heavy, and I was a relentless, you know. Every month I would do a teacher training. You know what I'm saying? I was in the guise of selfless service, so I set myself up into almost like a martyr, and I could
Yeah,
not take it towards the end. But since I have set myself up in a way that that became kind of like the that I believed it, right? So there was a
right.
lot of there's a lot of you know, when people started seeing me, saw me, people from the past, just this couple of weeks ago, there was a lot of tears, and they were so some of them were regretful of what they thought of me, seeing now what happened. Um, and I was also saying that I'm so sorry too for all of the things that hurt you that I have done in the past, right? I didn't mean it. I didn't mean any of it. But during that time, I guess when you're in a pedestal, then you become responsible for a whole community. And that's why, you know what, when I talk about this, if you notice, I cut down the pedestaling right away, right? So I talk about, you know, drunken days and drug fueled, you know what I'm saying, nights.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that they're I think one of the things that I caught from one of your podcasts was it's kind of like, yeah, I talk to some people and doesn't really click. And then some other people, I talk to them on somewhat of a regular basis, and that works for them, and that it's not like it's moving away from that like I will guide you there in this one-to-one for every person they see it.
That's
It's
right.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, hopefully you'll see something, or you'll
I can only show you the exit, or I can't walk you through it. Basically, is what I'm saying.
right.
Some people turn around and go, "This is not the exit." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's okay
The
too, and it's all right, and it's all right. But yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording here.